It's going through some gyrations here. I don't quite understand it, but then we'll go to the group here in a minute. As soon as I know it's working on Facebook.
Sure.
Oh, funny.
I just got a pop-up that said it's streaming live to Facebook.
Perfect. That works for me.
That means Alpha News will pick it up in a second, and we should have a viewership.
Yeah. How do I get back to Zoom? Oh, my goodness. Wow. Yeah. Guys, I can't get back to Zoom.
You're on a Mac, right?
Yeah.
Are you on the laptop?
No, I'm on a big one, but it did the Facebook thing. Oh, here we go. Maybe this will do it.
Well, we can see you, so that's good.
Well, that's good. There we go. Okay, well, let's turn this thing on. Okay, it says we're broadcasting. Can you see us on Facebook? What are you seeing, Kyle?
I see you guys here in Zoom.
You see us on Facebook? For those of you listening, I just want to welcome you to this special edition of Tuesday Online as we sort out a few things, and it looks like we're working. So let me start. My name is Scott Ninsel. I'm on the board of the First Tuesday Conservatives, and I am delighted to tell you that we have a very special guest tonight, and we have a new host. And our special guest is Eduardo Bolsonaro.
Bolsonaro.
Thank you, Eduardo. I thought I just knew that would happen, but anyway, my apologies for that. And it's working. Great, excellent. And so I am also delighted to introduce my new good friend, Kyle Hooten, and Kyle Hooten is with Alpha News. And with that, Kyle, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hi, guys. Welcome to the stream tonight. So glad to have you here, and so glad to have our guest, Eduardo Bolsonaro, who's here to talk about conservatism in Brazil. I know that a lot of us are acutely aware of the struggles conservatives face here in America, but all too often we neglect to pay attention to what right-wingers are doing in other countries. For that reason, we've brought Eduardo on to talk to us about Brazil. Eduardo, tell us, your country recently put socialism on its heels and is rapidly recovering from socialist leadership. As we look at America, we have a lot of these socialist so-called revolutionaries calling for a state-run economy here in the United States. What do you have to say to those people that want socialism in the US?
First of all, thank you very much to invite me to this webinar. It's a really pleasure to talk with you. And it's very crazy. Sometimes here in Brazil, we do not understand how US is following the same steps of Venezuela. We took like 30 years to take out the socialists from the power. When I mean from the power, is from the presidential chair. Mm-hmm. But in US, you can clearly see that some states, like for example, California, they're doing the same things that Venezuela made, like strong gun control, huge existentialism, and we know how it ends. So that's why here in Brazil, people got revolted and they elected my father, Jair Bolsonaro, especially because they were full of so much corruption. And the corruption is the way that they have to do the governments with big states. Why Latin America, you have so much corruption? It's not because we are people that are a culture, we love corruption. It's because we have big states. If you look for the biggest corruption scandals in Brazil, the beginning is only on the state public companies. Mm-hmm. So this is how you can avoid that, doing huge privatizations. Brazil nowadays, we have the biggest privatization program of a country in the whole world because we have hundred of those public companies. Mm-hmm. And the last year, finishing my answer, last year, Brazil turned the number 4 in the world when you talk about receiving foreign investments. So this is a sign of that the whole world is trusting in Brazil. Brazil is nowadays not anymore on the police pages of the newspaper. Brazil now is doing the right thing.
Well, that's wonderful. I wasn't aware that you are the #4 recipient of foreign investment. It's incredible what the free market can do. We were talking earlier how, despite the efforts of you and your father to bring conservatism into Brazil, there's still pockets of liberal leadership. Could you tell me a little bit about those?
Sorry, I didn't understand.
We were saying earlier that despite the fact that there's individuals like you and your father leading the conservative charge in Brazil, there's still these pockets of liberal leadership, specifically in the governorships. Could you speak a little bit about how those function?
Yes, here in Brazil, the poorest region of Brazil is the Northeast.
Mm-hmm.
So what the left made, when I talk left, I'm talking especially about the two former presidents from the Labour Party, which is a radical left-wing party in Brazil. I'm talking about Lula and Dilma Rousseff.
Mm-hmm.
What they made? They made huge programs with assistantialism. They were paying, for example, $100 for the people, and during the elections, what happened is they try to free the people. They say, or you vote in my candidates, or the other candidates is going to cut your benefit. So in the whole elections here, the left wings, they start elections with 30% of supporters. And it was very hard to win the election in 2018. But what it made is that it was the first election in Brazil that we had an openly conservative candidate. For example, Jair Bolsonaro was the only one saying that trust in the free market. Wow. Jair Bolsonaro was the only one saying that was necessary more guns for the citizen to fight back against criminals, or at least to defend your house. It was the only one saying about God, that the Christians, we have our values and have to respect that, because the biggest part of Brazil is made by Christians. And this is not a problem. It's not because I'm against any other religion, but it's just a fact.
Right.
And people realized that it was necessary to do this movement, to change things, because no one was supporting anymore so much corruption and so much policies that were against the will of the people.
How is the fight against corruption going? Do you still have corrupt elements of the government that are resisting the free market and that are resisting conservative principles?
Corruption is a very sensitive issue.
True.
Here in Brazil, we say that we are now on the 1.5 years without a corruption scandal in Brazil.
Wonderful.
This is very good. But I have to tell you, to be honest, there is not a way to control thousands and thousands of people working in the public administration, in public companies. Sometimes can happen corruption, cases of corruption. But as we were used during the Labour Party time, this is for sure is not happening anymore, because President Jair Bolsonaro, he is not just because he does not steal, but he don't let the other people from the government steal. And also, I think the biggest thing that the government made last year, during the first year of Jair Bolsonaro in office, is that he named the ministers by their potential, by the technique, not doing the pork and barrels with the Congress. Right. So this is also something that you have to have in mind. For example, Paulo Guedes is doing a great job in the economy. Paulo Guedes is a Chicago boy. He's for sure for the free market. Right. He tried to be part of other governments in the past, but he never had the chance, because socialism is so much easier to a politician to say that the socialism is better. Oh, I'm going to help you, poor people. I'm going to give you $100 per month. This is easy. Right. But on the next day, you are going to break the state, and the taxpayers are going to other country and not going to live in Brazil. It's the same situation that you are looking now in Venezuela.
That's very interesting. Another thing that we absolutely have to mention is the coronavirus. So the coronavirus is obviously a global problem. We're facing issues here in America. You're facing issues here in Brazil. I know that here in the US, I can't do certain things right now, like eat at a restaurant normally, or I can't attend a sports game. What does the situation look like on the ground in Brazil right now?
the biggest problem that we have here in Brazil is because our enemies, they came together not to fight against the pandemic, but to overthrow the president. This is the main problem that we have here. But okay, let's go to the facts. In the beginning of the pandemic, in the beginning of March, the Supreme Court of the Brazil, the maximum power of a court, they said that President Jair Bolsonaro doesn't have any kind of power to determine the conditions of a quarantine or to say something about lockdowns. So here in Brazil,
the president does not have the authority in Brazil right now to determine the conditions of a lockdown. That's astounding.
Yeah, you're right, Carl. Exactly that. So the governors, they can do that. They have the authority to do that. So it's pretty much the same situation that you have in US. Mm-hmm. If you have a socialist governor, he's going to lock down like forever.
Right.
And if you have a conservative one, he's going to try to reopen the shopping malls and reopen the economy. And the problem is when they try to reopen the economy, the left-wing politicians, they go to the court, ask for any kind of judges to get back again to the lockdown. So it's a very hard situation. And another thing that we have to note is that the Congress approved a law saying that the federal government is going to give the money to the state government in the case of the state government reduce their GDP. So as everything is locked down, as the economy is closed, for sure, the state governments, they're going to reduce their GDP. And who is going to pay the difference? The federal government, the President Jair Bolsonaro. So they are pretty much responsible and they want to lock down everything because they are not going to pay this bill. And then they can blame the president and ask maybe for impeachment, saying that the president is not respecting what the Congress, the law that the Congress just made.
That's insidious. I see what you're saying there, because the governors, they don't struggle if their economy fails because the federal system will bail them out. That's not good. Where's the media in all of this?
It's very hard to talk about it. Here in Brazil, we have a big problem because we elected a conservative president and we don't have any of those mainstream medias or universities or even a political party. You don't have even a conservative political party that openly consider itself conservative. So the mainstream media, they are together with all of our enemies, with all of the left wings, trying to overthrow the president. Mm-hmm. The president, he can do nothing, really nothing. And the media, or they do the fake news, or they blame the president for things that the president is not, he doesn't have the authority to control. And it's very hard. Can you imagine, like US only with the CNN? This is the situation of Brazil. That's also why, I'm sure that in US, and not only US, abroad of Brazil, in Europe and Asia, you only receive bad news about President Jair Bolsonaro, as he is burning the Amazonia and Amazon area and don't caring about it, or he's kind of a dictatorship guy. And this is all fake news. And no way, like President Jair Bolsonaro is the most democratic president that we had in Brazil. He's respecting everything the Supreme Court is saying, even when sometimes you think that this is against the Constitution. And it's very, very, very difficult here to handle that. But on aside of it, the Brazilian people is waking up that's not only vote for president and keep your normal life. You have to vote for president, for representatives, for the Senate, and then you have to follow it. You have to express what you want. You have to keep the free speech, keep international, the freedom in internet, because if you don't do that, the system, the establishment is going to cut you down. You're going to be a sheep.
Yeah, yeah. So when you talk about there's no conservative media, there's no well-defined conservative party, what is the average conservative in Brazil left with for resources? If they go on social media and they start talking about conservative ideas, are they going to face similar censorship that conservatives in America might face?
Yeah, censorship here is all the time, all the time. Facebook even deleted, Twitter deleted a video of the President Jair Bolsonaro on the streets in the beginning of the pandemic. Jair Bolsonaro was on the streets in the beginning of the pandemic, talking with poor people on the streets, because one reason, because the biggest part of Brazil is poor, and people don't have a way to keep at home. They have to decide if they are going to be at home and die because you don't have food to eat, or they are going to risk their lives and go to the streets. And everyone in that situation could go to the streets, try to work and have money.
Yeah.
You know.
And the president, your father, was out there trying to talk with those people, and Twitter, the establishment, banned that video. That's really astounding.
Yes. And now it's even worse because with the new, you say boycott in US, boycott? With the new boycott of companies as Coca-Cola, Honda, Unilever, and others, they are boycotting Facebook.
Yeah.
Now, because Facebook is not fighting against the hate speech or against the fake news. So Facebook contracted the Atlantic Council, a think tank, to do a research and a relatory. And at this relatory, the Atlantic Council said that some of the conservative Brazilians, as my assistants, were doing the hate speech and fake news on the social media. So what they made, they blocked my assistants. They blocked a lot of conservative profiles here in Brazil because they want to have back again the money from Coca-Cola, from Honda. So they are selling, they are pricifying, they are selling our speech, our freedom of speech.
Yeah.
What is a shame for Facebook.
It's very ironic because the left wing says that, the president of Brazil is anti-democracy. Meanwhile, the social media companies that lean left are selling the democracy to large transnational corporations, which is obviously not good for Brazil and not good for America either to see that happening.
It is disgusting, Kyle, but what happened with that? When you go to the streets and talk with, how can I say, regular citizens, when you talk with the people on the streets, they can see that. And they have the same opinion of us. So what is going to happen? I'm going to candidate my assistant to be city council at his city in São Paulo. And I'm sure that he will win the election. And maybe in a couple of years, he's coming here to the Congress in the capital of Brazil, be a representative, or maybe, who knows, a senator. So they get crazy because they want to control everything. They want to shut up the conservatives, but what is happening is exactly the opposite.
Right. And
they do not realize that because they live in a bubble. They live in a bubble that they believe that I have the rate speech because they think that I have I do fake news on social media. So it's a very crazy situation. They have to get out from the bubble and see what is happening with the people. To then they understand what is going on, because they do not understand what happened in 2018 with the election of Jair Bolsonaro. An election with a candidate that did not spend even $1 million and got elected for president in a country of 210 million people.
That's incredible.
They were doing the whole campaign laughing. Oh, this crazy Bolsonaro, he's never going to be elected. It's like Trump. But in Trump, in the US, at least you have the Republican Party. You have now majority in the Supreme Court. You have the Senate. Here in Brazil, you don't have nothing of that. You have Fox News in US. Right. You have other channels, YouTube and other big channels on the social media. Here in Brazil, you don't have nothing. You have the people and you have the internet. But if they can shut up the internet and you have a law project that got approved in the Senate, and now we are analyzing that in the House, a new law project that say that you have to show your ID to open a Facebook or Twitter account. You are going to create a censorship, kind of a new agency to control what you are talking on the social media, if this is okay or if this is a hate speech, and they're going to block you. It's crazy. It's crazy. Like, free speech is under a real risk in Brazil with this new law.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you anticipate that that law will pass and become official and be enacted, or do you think that it's sort of a scare tactic the left is using?
We have to see what is really going on.
Sure.
I know that if the House passed this law, if we approve this law, for sure President Jair Bolsonaro is going to, how can I say in English? I don't know the term. Veto. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Veto, yeah,
exactly.
He's going to do some vetoes. Oh, sorry. At this law, but it has the chance to be approved. Yes, I would say that nowadays is 50-50 in the House.
That's very concerning. And Twitter and Facebook, they're okay with this. They're okay with the country.
No. Do you see? Even Twitter and Facebook here in Brazil, they are against that.
Really?
Because you have some, they are losing power.
Yeah.
Because when Facebook, usually, sometimes it happens. You do a post, and then Facebook or Instagram, they block your post and say that they are blocking your post. Sometimes you don't know even what post they are blocking and for what reason.
Mm-hmm.
With this new law, they have to do that. They have to tell you the reason that they are blocking you and why. Also, you have they're trying to control the WhatsApp and other apps like WhatsApp, saying that if they see that you are doing forward, if you are sending fake news for other people, you have to delete it and have to control, because if you are sending for more than 4 people, this is a kind of a crime, and they are going to block you from WhatsApp or something like this. You receive a punishment, because this is another level of fake news. When you send that news for more than 4 people, they are crazy, man. They are crazy. This law is crazy, and it's unbelievable that this law got approved in the Senate.
So not only can you not post what you want to on social media, but you can't even have discussions with more than 4 friends about an article that they don't like. That is astounding.
Even in your family group. Your
own family. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have families that are bigger than 4 people.
Yes. This is crazy. And if you do not believe me, if you know, Eduardo, you are crazy, I do not believe in that, go there and do a research. Law project number 2630. This is the number of the law project. You can do that. I don't know if you have the version in English, but if you translate that using Google Translator, for sure you're going to find what I'm talking about here.
Sure, that's crazy. So what is the long-term prognosis then? I know that you mentioned that more right-wing conservative candidates are going to be running for local seats. I know that the people of Brazil are ready to be done with socialism and done with censorship. Do you anticipate that in the long run, it's going to be a conservative victory and eventually these left-wing lawmakers will be deposed? Or do you think there's going to be some tension there?
The next elections, we have city elections now in the end of this year.
Okay.
And it's a very good thermometer to we see the political scenario of Brazil. But thinking in 2022, when we are going to have new elections for president and for representative and for the Senate, I think the conservatives are going to grow up. Because, we took off the Labour Party from the presidential chair. But as I said, now Brazil, we are crossing a time that we are realizing that it's not enough you only vote for president. You have to change the Congress. And even nowadays, I mean, out of an election campaign, people is still doing outdoors around Brazil, spending their own money to express their support for President Jair Bolsonaro. For example, if you arrive here in the Brasilia airport, right in the avenue that goes to the airport, you have at least 6 outdoors talking good about President Jair Bolsonaro. And I even don't know who is the guy that is paying for that. They do not realize that, man, how can people spend money supporting a politician outside of the election time? Man, this is crazy. So I think we are strong enough to do a greater job in 2022. I don't think that 2018 is a tsunami that is gone. I think after 2018, things will never be the same.
Wonderful. Well, speaking of elections, we have one coming up here in America. I know that Brazil and Brazilian leadership and President Trump have had an amicable relationship, and that's been going very well. If President Donald Trump should lose in 2020, how do you anticipate that U.S.-Brazilian relations might change?
With President Trump, we are very comfortable to sit in a table and talk openly about our problems, what we want, what the U.S. wants. So it's a very, it's a very honest relation. Mm-hmm. And why the relation is like that? Is because we have the same thinking of the world. We have the same view of the world. When we, for example, we would never accept a soft agreement with Iran when you talk about nuclear power. We would never accept soft policies for Venezuela because Venezuela is a neighbor of Brazil, and we are looking how bad are our brothers Venezuelans now with this narco dictatorship. So I think it would be okay for trades maybe, but when you talk about all the other foreign affairs, I think it would be very, very hard. And you have another content, is that US is an example for Brazil. What happened in US then happened in Brazil. If you see, for example, US, you had your independence in 1776. In Brazil, it was in 1824. The first country that recognized the independence of Brazil, it was USA. The first embassy that Brazil opened abroad, it was in Washington. So we are very close. We have the same thinking of democracy. We believe in the freedom, and I don't see that. I think that Donald Trump is going to get reelected, and we are going to keep with this foreign affairs policy to get the countries closer. Wonderful. For example, a couple of years ago, in 2008, China became the #1 trade partner, international trade partner of Brazil. Mm-hmm. Before that, in the whole history of Brazil, it was USA. And I think we can get back a nice policy to US coming back again to be the #1 trade partner of Brazil.
I know that a lot of Americans like myself would very much enjoy that reality. You spoke about this relationship between Brazil's politics and America's politics. When something happens in America, like you see Antifa develop, or you see the Black Lives Matter protests, or there's civil unrest, is that reflected in Brazil at all, or is it separate enough?
For sure, it reflects in Brazil. Right after you started with the Antifas, like a couple of days after you, here in Brazil, starts the Antifas too.
It was that quickly.
Very quickly. And also you could see in the press that some black movements, they are trying to find a victim from a bullet from the police or any kind of victim during a shooting situation between drug dealers and the police, which is happen daily here in Brazil, to try to get that body and say, now we have a black guy that was killed by the police, so we have to fight back against it. You have to change the law. You have to take out the monuments. So here in Brazil, happens exactly the same things that are happening in US. And I have to tell you something, is that here in Brazil for 8 weekends consecutive, you had people on the streets of Brasilia, our capital, on the streets showing their support for President Jair Bolsonaro. I'm talking about old ladies, I'm talking about family, I'm talking about people using our soccer team, yellow soccer team t-shirt on the streets, showing their patriotism with Brazilian flags everywhere. And then when 2 or 3 people, very few people, were asking for a military intervention to the militaries get the power again. But okay, it was like very, very few people asking for that. And they have the right. If you have the free speech right, you have to let them do whatever they want. And here in Brazil, you have LGBT parties, where parades, where people do sex on the streets. You have protests here where people get scents and introduce it in the ass. I'm talking really true about that. You can go to the Google image and see that. Here in Brazil, we talk that this is the Marcha das Vadias. It's like the prostitutes march. Really? And you have a bunch of bizarre things like that. So why not? People using yellow t-shirt on the streets, let them do whatever they want. But okay, after that, the press start to talk that those movements were movements against the democracy, anti-democracy.
Wow.
And then they start to say that Antifa's movement was democracy.
Really?
But the Antifa movement, they were punching conservatives on the floor, like 5, 6, 7 guys from the Antifas.
Yeah.
Punching one guy on the floor. You have
just like America. It's never a fair fight. Yeah.
Yes, never a fair. Because when it's fair, they run away.
They're cowards.
But okay. After that, the Brazilian Supreme Court opened an investigation because one of the judges, one of the ministers of the court, said that he was a victim of those movements. And then he started this investigation, bang the victim, bang the DA, and bang the judge.
Really?
What is totally against our constitution. This is I never thought that in Brazil we would see this kind of situation. And then he started to use the national security law to arrest people. We have here in Brazil around almost 10 people that went to the jail with no crime, only because they told something that this judge called Alexandre de Moraes thought it was offensive against the Supreme Court. So if you are on internet, you can say that politicians are shits.
Yeah.
But if you say the Supreme Court is something bad, they can arrest you. It's a crazy thing. And you don't see the press talking about it, because even a conservative journalist went to the jail. And the press here in Brazil dominated by the left wings. They say that he's not a journalist. He is a YouTuber. He's a blogger, trying to reduce his status.
Right.
To don't say that the Supreme Court is violating the freedom of the press. See how crazy is that?
It's
the
insane.
Press here in Brazil works against the freedom of the press.
So you've got Antifa beating people in the streets. You've got prostitutes marching in the streets for all sorts of, unruly aims. But when some conservatives come out wearing the soccer jersey to support the president, the Supreme Court can declare them offensive and put them in jail.
Exactly.
That's astounding.
Carl. Exactly that.
Wow.
By the way, you have a great English. You have to teach me.
I've been practicing for about 21 years, so I don't know.
I've been in US for when I was in the university. I lived in US 2 months in Maine, near of Kennebunk, and 2 months in Colorado in Breckenridge.
Oh, you've been to Breckenridge. I'm a big skier. I love going out skiing in Breckenridge, those kinds of places.
Nice. Brazilians are not made to ski. That's why I broke my 2 bones.
Really?
Doing, jumping with the snowboard.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
The bones came out of my arm and then came back to the body.
When was that?
I don't know, but then it was in Vermont. It was, I think, 2014 or 2013. Not a long time ago.
Very painful. Very painful. So, you've been skiing in America. I know you've been to CPAC in America. When is your next trip planned to come back to the US?
I don't know. We don't have a date because the pandemic, but for sure as soon as possible, because I'm learning a lot with you. I'm learning a lot with the think tanks in US. I'm learning a lot with Match Lab in CPAC, which is a great guy and helping us a lot here. And here in Brazil, as I said, we don't have that much conservative think tanks. We don't have mainstream media on our side, universities. So I'm trying to get the know-how in US and bring it to Brazil. Mm-hmm. Here in Brazil, we don't have the culture to give money, to donate for conservative think tanks. So we have to do that. And this is one of the main things that I look for when I go to US.
Sure. So you're looking to emulate something like the Heritage Foundation or another large conservative.
Yes. Leadership Institute, CBN, and get contacts. And also CPAC was great because after CPAC, I got an invitation to talk in Hungary and Australia and also in South Korea, which is a great connection to know what is going on other parts of the world and get to experience how to fight against the left.
Very helpful. Another thing that we just have to talk about, because I'm a huge fan of this policy, is you and your father have both done a lot to promote gun rights and gun culture in Brazil. I'm a big Second Amendment advocate myself, so I've been very happy to see that. Could you just tell me a little bit about why you chose to promote gun ownership and what effect that's had on your country?
Brazil is a successful case when you talk about gun control. I mean, when you talk about against the gun control. Because after the election of Jair Bolsonaro in 2018, and he took office in January 1st of 2019, so he started to do flexibilization to get more access from the people, to have more access to buy their guns. And last year, in 2019, we had 20% less murder. I'm talking about 20% less murder. This is a case that you have to, is a great thing that you have to, that you break the whole gun control arguments, because we had here in Brazil, we had our gun control law is from 2003. When the gun control law got approved in Brazil, it was happening a scandal where the former president Lula, he was paying for the representatives and for the senator monthly money. It was a huge scandal here in Brazil. And at that time, we got approved our gun control law here. And what is the main problem of our gun control law is that you have some requirements, like objective ones. For example, you have to be up to 25 years old. Or you have it or you don't have it. You need to have a residence. You need to have a regular job. You need to show that you don't have any kind of pendants. You don't have nothing against you in the court or in the police. But then you have one requirement that is a subjective one, is that you have to show that you need a gun. And then start the problem. Because when you have all the other documents and you go to a police officer and tell him that, okay, I need a gun, I have more than 25 years old, I made a psychological test, I made a shooting test, I have all the requirements, okay, then the officers here usually say, okay, but you did not demonstrate why you need a gun. So see, it's not a right, you don't have the right. You have to ask with your knees, please, I need a gun.
It's a special point, it's not a right.
Yeah, and it's crazy because here in Brazil, in 2018, we were used to have more than 60,000 murders per year. Wow. 60,000 murders per year. In absolute numbers, it's more than you have in Syria. You have much more risk if you are a policeman here in Rio de Janeiro than be an American soldier in Afghanistan.
Wow.
It's a very crazy. But then Jair Bolsonaro, what he made? He ruled it, because the president here in Brazil, he has the right to rule this requirement when you talk about to show the necessity, the needed to have a gun. So he said, okay, every state in Brazil, the president Jair Bolsonaro made a decree.
Yep.
Every state in Brazil where you have more than 10 murders for each group of 100,000 people, it's already you don't have to show you. It's already done. It
Right.
shows a lot that you need the gun at home. So every state in Brazil, as you have more than 10 murders for each group of 100,000 people, then you have to show only all the other requirements that you are up 25, nothing in the trials or in the police, and all the other requirements. And also here in Brazil, who control the guns, the main thing is the army. And the army, they start to do again the regulation about the guns. For example, in Brazil, it was impossible you buy a pistol with the caliber 9 millimeters.
I've heard about that. They only have 380s,
Yes. And then, okay, nowadays you can do that. Nowadays you can buy, it's very expensive, but you can buy a rifle here in Brazil if you are a professional shooter, and it's very easy to be a professional shooter, or if you are a collector of guns. So things in Brazil are changing, and we are almost showing the numbers of 2019. But some states in Brazil, you had increase of almost 250% in the numbers of the selling of guns from 2018 to 2019. So after Jair Bolsonaro got elected, we are more than double sizing the number of the selling of guns in Brazil. And at the same time that we are reducing, and not only 20% of the number of the murders, but also 90 other crimes. I mean, when you rob someone and you kill the guy, and you're reducing so much other crimes. Because only one reason, we are giving that message to the criminals that penetration, because your victim can have a gun.
Yeah. So you increase the number of guns, you over double it, and crimes go down. That seems like it pretty much strikes the US narrative that guns lead to crime. I would say that that's been pretty much debunked at this point.
Yes, you have your own examples. I mean, Chicago as a bad example for that. A good example for that is, for example, Florida.
Oh, yeah.
But now you can add Brazil in that. And you can add even Venezuela. Venezuela is a very bad example. Since 2012 in Venezuela, you don't have the right to buy a gun. It's just forbidden. And then what you see, Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, is the most violent capital in the world. If you look for the number of the murders, if you think that Syria or Afghanistan or Iraq, they have the main cities when you talk about violence, no, you are wrong. The worst one is Caracas in Venezuela.
Very interesting. Another thing I want to ask you about, we've talked a bit about the media, we've talked about fake media. Before this interview, I did a quick headline search of the last name Bolsonaro, and I filtered it for US media outlets, and I saw exclusively negative press. I saw things like there's tension between the president and the military. I saw things like people were calling Brazil like a hellhole because of coronavirus. Why do you think Brazil is getting such negative press in America, and what do you need from conservative media outlets to help correct that?
Especially the mainstream press here in Brazil is not talking about the reality of the things. Basically, because we are not paying them anymore, we have other priorities. They were so used with public money, and now we are giving another way for the public money, which it is for sure education, health, security, and things that really care for the people. So what it needs, we need to keep internet free. We need to keep that. So we're here in Brazil, we are talking about work against this new law project 2630. Outside of Brazil, we need all the other channels, all the other think tanks talking and giving space for people like me to talk about what is going on in Brazil. So inviting conservative politicians, conservative YouTubers, conservative analysts, to show what is going on in Brazil, because we have all the arguments. We can keep here the whole night talking. And I will say that all of those labels that we don't care about Amazon, we are burning Amazon, we don't care about poor people, we are the dictatorship worse than Maduro. I have a bench, I have a bench of arguments to show that this is not true. For example, The former president of the Chile, Miss Bachelet, she's occupying a chair. I don't know exactly what one, but a human rights chair inside of the United Nations. She said publicly that Brazil is living a dictatorship with Bolsonaro. But let's go think, what journalist we send to the jail? What political party we closed? What TV channel we closed? Who is in the jail? But I know that the Supreme Court is sending journalists to the jail. Why do you talk about it, Ms. Bachelet? She's not going to talk nothing about it because she's the United Nations talking about the human rights and all of those bullshit that we know what are for.
Right.
So we need time. We have to spend time explaining to you why we are not that, but also showing the good things that we are doing here in Brazil, for example, with gun control and with free markets.
Yeah, well, if you guys are running a right-wing dictatorship, you're not doing a very good job of it because it doesn't look like a dictatorship to me.
Sure, yes.
We're coming up on about 45 minutes. This has been an absolutely wonderful conversation. I'm sure we could sit here and talk all night. Is there anything else that you'd like to add that I haven't asked? Because I'm sure there's a million other topics that we could address.
For example, I would like to talk about President Jair Bolsonaro, that he got COVID, and here the press is saying, "Oh, he's not using the mask. Oh, he's on the streets." A president, a real leader is with your people. It's not like we be in our castles doing policies for the people and don't caring about them. Jair Bolsonaro is with the people because he wants to see how people is living. And when I talk people, I'm talking about the poor people of the Brazil, the kind of the people that don't have food for the next day, how they're going to live with that. People that don't have money to buy a mask. People that don't have sometimes even a t-shirt to do a mask inside of her own home. So that's why Jair Bolsonaro, he's always want to give the example. And he is an army captain. He is someone made to go to a war. Right. And very unhappily, some of the guys of our generation would never face a war because when they see a rat on the floor, or if they read a fake news on the Twitter, or if they see something offensive on the social media, they start to cry. In fact, we have to cross our problems, not talking that we are victims, but hard working for that. And I think the last message that I would give to the people who is watching us right now, Kyle, if you let me, is that our work is not only for politicians. It's not only vote for Trump and then forget about the politics. I know that is hard. I know that you have to work. Sometimes you have to study. You arrive at home very tired, but you have to follow what is going on in the Congress. You have to follow what is really going on with the administration, public administration. Because if you don't do that, for sure, other one that loves politics is going to do that in your place.
That's a very good point. If you're not out there advocating your beliefs, somebody else is going to advocate theirs and they're going to win. Also, very, very inspiring message about the president being with his people. I think that's something that we just don't see from a lot of leaders nowadays. They don't care about the people. They stay in their executive mansions, sequestered away from the problems. And to see a leader that's actually out there engaging with the neediest in his country is very inspiring. So that was an excellent note to leave this on. Thank you very much.
By the way, Jair Bolsonaro is doing a treatment with chloroquine, azithromycin, and zinco, and he's great. He's working. I think in a couple of days he's going to be back in the office.
So yeah, I saw what I would consider a fake news headline here in America the other day. Somebody saying that he was, seriously ill and that the drug isn't working. So I'm very, very glad to hear otherwise. That's absolutely excellent.
Huh. And he's 64, so he's in the risk group.
Now, talking about hydrochloroquine, has that drug been distributed in Brazil? Are you guys going to use that in the general population?
We try to use in the general population, but as I said, some governors here and even some mayors, they forbidden the use of the hydroxychloroquine. But you have some places, some states that, yes, the doctors are using that under the consentment of the patient.
Yeah, that's been a hot button issue here in the U.S. too. It's almost a news cycle unto its own. It's a lot to keep up with there.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil.
Yeah, wonderful. That was an excellent interview. Thank you very much. To all of our viewers out there, it's very important to remember that, there are conservative struggles in countries other than America. Individuals in Brazil and everywhere else are also fighting for the same values we're fighting for. And it's important to keep up with what they're doing, because this isn't just an isolated movement. You sitting alone in your own home, cruising through Twitter, looking at Trump's tweets, you're one person in a vast network of people that have those same values, and getting out there and connecting with those people and realizing the impact that American politics have on Brazil and that Brazilian politics have on America is a very important part of being a conservative. So to all the viewers, I would urge you to pay attention to interviews like this, and pay attention to news south of the border, and pay attention to the news over in the UK, because it does matter. And, as Eduardo Bolsonaro just told us, what we see in one country can quickly become mirrored in another country, and it's important to learn those lessons. So thanks for tuning in tonight, folks. Thank you again, Eduardo, for being with us tonight. This was an excellent event.
And thank you, Scott Nitzel, and also the Andrew Cooper is not with us here, but thank you again, Scott, because the opportunity that I'm having here is a great one, and I really appreciate your time to talk with me here in Brazil.
Hey, thank you so much. This was excellent. Absolutely excellent. We thoroughly enjoyed it. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Thank you once more. And I improve my English to come back here.
Fantastic.
You speak English better than I speak Spanish or Portuguese. So
they make jokes with my English here. Sometimes you can talk about nuclear power, war, U.S., Brazil, and then if you go to the newspaper, you see Eduardo Bolsonaro don't have a great English.
No good. That's no good. Wow. Thanks for helping us rectify some of the fake headlines. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.